The first segment of the Hot 7 Nightly News is brought to you by Flow.
Tonight, health officials are calling on members of the public to make official reports of healthcare professionals suspected of spewing anti-vaccine sentiments. The United States to ease travel restrictions on all fully vaccinated foreign visitors. And Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre makes his first international appearance since being elected into office.
This is the Hot 7 Nightly News with Lovelace and Amy Joseph.
Good night. It is Monday, the 20th of September, 2021. Welcome to the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. I'm Nisha Charles. Thank you for joining us. Complaints have been leveled at a healthcare worker in Soufrière region, who residents say have been discouraging individuals from getting vaccinated and refusing to test individuals for COVID-19. One resident spoke to Hot 7 TV News and says she is at her wit's end as the level of vaccine hesitancy in the community was already high, and the behavior of the healthcare worker has only fueled the anti-vaccine sentiments and hesitancy in the area. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Health is calling on members of the community with such an experience to make official reports to the ministry.
The battle of the vaccinated against the unvaccinated and science trustees and non-believers in St. Lucia continues to spark debate far and wide. Meanwhile, the number of individuals being infected on island with the virus continues to increase. As of Sunday 19th, St. Lucia has recorded 10,605 confirmed cases of COVID-19 and 150 deaths. One resident of Soufrière says there is urgent need for a healthcare practitioner in the region to be disciplined by the Ministry of Health for fueling vaccine hesitancy and spreading misinformation. She recounts that almost 3 weeks ago, she requested that her mother take a COVID-19 test at the Soufrière hospital, and the nurse outrightly refused to test her mother. The resident says following the incident, many individuals have come forward to say that the nurse in question has either discouraged them from getting vaccinated or refused to test them for the virus. She says in addition to this, the healthcare worker has on multiple occasions broken fundamental COVID-19 health and safety practices.
This nurse came up to her without a mask, and this nurse was going around treating patients without a mask. She refused to wear a mask. And this nurse was also telling people how COVID isn't real and they shouldn't get the vaccine, and they're trying to do whatever with us, poison with us, I can't remember, with the vaccine, and we should be wise and not take it. And I'm saying to myself, what if my mother was another person from Soufrière who came to the hospital because I'm concerned I have COVID, and this nurse tells me, oh, you probably don't have COVID, you don't have enough symptoms. And I just listen to her because, hello, she's a nurse. I mean, she's in that field. I just listen to her and I go home. What if I do have COVID and I spread it? This is how things spread. This is the same way why so many people in Soufrière are walking around with COVID.
The resident says the individual is adding fuel to an already volatile situation in Soufrière, where many people are either vaccine hesitant or anti-vaccination. She expresses deep concern, as this could mean that many people may be positive and are walking around being super spreaders.
The people of Soufrière are already so hesitant to actually get tested, and this nurse is making it worse. Okay? The vaccine hesitancy in Soufrière started way before there was even a vaccine. And now we have this nurse just going around increasing this hesitancy and just spreading all her beliefs, saying that the vaccine isn't good, don't take the vaccine, COVID isn't real, they're lying to us. So you can imagine how many people in Soufrière right now are walking around unvaccinated, has COVID, is spreading COVID, not wearing a mask. This nurse is going around everywhere without a mask. A nurse. Imagine that.
She calls on the Ministry of Health to intervene, investigate, and discipline this worker.
I am upset. I would like this nurse to be dealt with. Whether she be suspended or fired, I'm not sure. But I want something to be done. She is out there basically telling everyone, do not get the vaccine. Okay, this is how we cannot reach herd immunity yet. I would like to be out living my life as normal as I can with this COVID thing. And it's just not working out because St. Lucians are not going to get vaccinated. And this nurse is making it worse.
Several social media posts have been cited referencing the behavior of this nurse. The Hot 7 desk reached out to the Ministry of Health. The National Immunization Manager informed the news desk that reports have been received and as a department, the news has been addressed. However, she says if more individuals have the same experience, then they need to be officially reported to the Ministry of Health, as the department needs evidence of official reports in order to proceed with whichever disciplinary actions that can be taken. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzalez.
Starting in November, the United States plans to ease travel restrictions on all fully vaccinated foreign visitors. According to the White House, the new rules will require all foreign nationals arriving in the United States to show proof of being fully vaccinated. The White House COVID-19 response coordinator says that the start date of November will give agencies and airlines time to prepare. In addition to requiring vaccination, the Biden administration said it was taking other steps to mitigate spread of the virus in 3 other areas: testing, contact tracing, and masking. Fully vaccinated foreign nationals and American citizens returning to the United States from abroad will be required to take a pre-departure COVID-19 test within 3 days of their flight and show proof of a negative result before boarding. Unvaccinated Americans returning to the U.S. will be subject to stricter testing requirements, including a test within 1 day of departure and an additional test when they return. Fully vaccinated passengers will not be subject to any quarantine mandates upon arrival in the U.S. Meantime, travelers from the UK and the European Union are welcoming the new changes, allowing them to travel to the U.S. Former U.S. President Donald Trump introduced the travel ban in March 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic. We hear more in this BBC report.
Gary O'Donoghue, and not a moment too soon, many will say, Gary.
Yeah, I think there'll be a lot of relief in Europe and the UK, obviously, and Ireland for this change, because up until now there's been a sort of asymmetry to the travel restrictions. In other words, Americans have been able to travel to Europe and the UK pretty easily, providing they took tests and were vaccinated, etc. That wasn't true the other way around. For the last 18 months, most British people have not been able to come to the US, and so that's been a bone of contention. We were expecting perhaps some change to take place to that back at the G7 meeting in Cornwall. It didn't happen. They've been talking ever since, and now they've come to an agreement. So what happens now from November, if you're double vaccinated in the UK, you'll have to take a test within 3 days of travel, but you will be able to get on a plane to the US, and you won't have to quarantine when you get here. Now, if you're a US citizen and you haven't been vaccinated, then actually the restrictions are being tightened for you if you're outside this country. You'd have to take a test within 1 day of travelling back home to the United States, and then a test when you get here. The other thing that travellers from the UK will have to do is give up their mobile phone numbers and emails for contact tracing, as the Centres for Disease Control here is going to institute some sort of contact tracing method. And I presume that's about the dangers of new variants and things like that. But good news for families that have been separated, good news for the tourism industry. The airlines have been crying out for this for forever. And of course, business has wanted things to open up and has been lobbying hard for this. And finally, the Americans have agreed.
The new British Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss, has taken to social media. She's, if we can have a little look at what she's said on Twitter. Excellent news for travellers from the UK to the US. Important for our economic recovery, families and trade, she says. How much of this is down to ongoing diplomatic chats behind the scene, Gary, as opposed to the science of COVID?
Well, the interesting thing is there has been this working group talking about opening things up since the G7 between Europe, UK, US, but nothing really has emerged from it. We didn't really necessarily expect something. Expectations were dashed really at G7, and nothing really has emerged since, other than that they were sticking to the rules. So this is somewhat out of the blue. I mean, it does help, I think, in the sense that it not only does the obvious things, but of course America is facing a lot of criticism from some European allies over all sorts of things at the moment, not least from the French on the way they handled the new alliance with the UK and Australia over the Afghanistan withdrawal. So this will help perhaps smooth over some of those problems that they've had diplomatically. I don't think that would necessarily have been the motivating factor, but it will certainly help, and it will normalise things. The other thing to point out, of course, is that the dominant variant here in the United States is the Delta variant, which is the same as it is in the UK. So in a sense you could say, what's the risk, particularly as the levels of vaccination are higher in the UK than they are here. I think if a new variant emerged, Maxine, in the UK or Europe, that might change the calculation from the point of view of the United States. They haven't said that, but that would be an obvious thing to think about. But as things stand at the moment, they think they can do this whilst keeping the population here safe.
Still to come, St. Lucia's Prime Minister makes his first appearance outside of the country. A select group of minibus drivers clamour to form their own association, and the Caribbean Public Health Agency CARPHA to roll out a tourism health program here.
The first segment of the Hot 7 Nightly News was brought to you by Flow.